what I'm going to be talking to you about in this session is some of my own private work. And I questioned long and hard whether I would share this with you or not, and I have decided that I will. However, I do want to say that everything, all the charts that you have on this section have an additional copyright on them. And also all of this information is basically information to use for your own personal use, but it is not information for you to go out and teach to other people, and it is not information for you to write books on. And I know none of you are going to do that here. However, that's the reason why I haven't got the Universal Clock Book 2 out, because the last time I wrote the Universal Clock Book 1, within just a short period of time, everybody wrote books using all of that information and never even mentioned my name. Not that that's the most important thing. The fact is that I just find it so rude of other people to just take work belonging to one person or work generated by one person and not at least say, and I'm not just talking about me, but anybody out there who's done some large work of research work and then just automatically write books on it and charge even more than I charge for my book. So, so the first time I'm going to see what I'm telling you about today in print in anybody's book, I'm going to be going over there and punching their lights out. Because you're the only people in this class, so somehow they got it from you that are learning this today. And on the videotapes, I'm very much inclined to cut this part of the videotape out if they order this class. And not let them have this part. Okay, now, in order to do this, it's a rather complex thing. And so I'm going to try to walk you through it very, very, yes. I'm going to try to walk you through it in a way that is easy. One of the things I'm going to need before I do so, Thomas, is I need my glasses, which are in my bag, and I'm fastened up here to this table with the ankle chain, and I can't get away. Yeah, exactly. I can't see without my glasses. This chart you already have, and it's not in part of this handout. I'm just showing you this. You don't need to find it even. We just talked about this before lunch, and I just want to say that all we want to look at on this chart is we had these cycles on this chart that told us highs and lows, and we've already done that. So we already know this information about this chart. So what we can kind of do is we can combine some further information with this. And what we have to do in order to combine this information with this is we have to learn a little bit of something. And I'm going to walk you through it very, very slowly so that I'm sure that you get it. And I'm going to use gold, and I'm using gold for a specific reason. And you'll see why in just a moment, because I'm using gold to make it easy for you. Okay. Okay, so your chart number 1 on gold. What I have done here, first of all, the first thing you want to look at on this chart is the fact that I have divided this chart through this middle here, and I have a line called the pivot point or the center line, which is $360. And I'm telling you $360 equals 0 degrees of Aries. That's because you have 360 degrees in a circle, and at the end of that 360 degrees, you start again at 0 degrees and go another 360 degrees. Therefore, 360 degrees equals 0 Aries, and it starts the circle. So $360 is the Aries, 0 Aries line. So this is our pivot point line, and it's a very, very important line. The reason I'm using gold, therefore, is because it works out perfectly, money-wise, with what I want to show you. You can use this information that I'm showing you on any chart, but you have to make the calculations to put it into correct monetary correlation, and that's more difficult. But I'm showing you on gold, and then you can go ahead and make the other changes yourself. The other lines on here are the 390 line. 390 is $30 higher or 30 degrees higher than 0 Aries, so naturally that would be 0 Taurus. So we have a 0 Taurus line on here. And if you come down 30 degrees below that, and $30 below that, you have $330 or 0 Pisces line. Now, since gold is trading in this range, and gold is not going around a 360-degree circle every day, every week, every month, every year, then we're going to look at this range as being the whole range of the whole 360 degrees. And so therefore we have to now look at, we say here the high and low of the range is limited, including to include all signs, and all signs must be used. Therefore, we take the cardinal signs, Aries, Libra, Capricorn, and Cancer, and all of those signs are going to be with Aries. Fixed signs, Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius are going to be with Taurus. And the mutable signs of Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, and Sagittarius are going to be with Pisces. So on your next sheet, I have put it in that format, as you will see. Look at chart 2. I have included these signs as being part of this line. I have included them as being part of this line and included them part as being this line. In other words, we have the cardinal, fixed, and mutable signs that go along with these particular lines, simply because this commodity does not move in a large enough price range, so we have to have our prices, our signs, in with the price range that it works with. Now, once you understand this concept of what I've done here, you will be able to go on and see what I'm talking about. The next thing that I have done on here is I have inserted a sun line. And the sun line I'm calling a sun line timeline. And I've inserted this sun line, and I've put it at 360 degrees, it tells you at the top. In other words, I've just put the yearly sun line on there. Every year, this sun line is running up in this particular manner and goes through this price range in this particular manner. Yes?
You said if we understand this, we're all set. If we don't
Yes.
understand it, we're not going to follow.
Okay.
So I'd like some clarification.
Clarification, okay.
I understand completely from this former page when it says, you know, you have the 3 different bands
Right.
and how they can represent
Right,
that. I'm
okay.
cool with. It's when we turn the page, and I do see, and I understand why you split them up into
Right.
10, 20, and 30, but the question has to do with what you have in parentheses.
Yes, okay.
Now, it seems to me that they come in a different order than that, but you're grouping all of one kind of
Over
sign,
each other.
all fire or all
Think
that
about it
together
this
as
way.
opposed to every other
Think
one.
about, okay, you're asking why I have these in parentheses underneath, which,
do
think
you
about
put
it this
together?
way, think about it this way, that we just overlapped charts in the last segment. We overlapped certain years over other years. We looked at them in an overlap. What I've just done is I've overlapped signs over each other. I've overlapped all the fixed signs on top of each other. I've overlapped all the cardinal signs on top of one another. I've overlapped all the mutable signs on top of one another.
Okay.
And I've said everything in these signs because they're fixed, because this market does not move sufficiently, and planets go through all the other signs. So if I didn't overlap them, I would have no...
Okay, it's the concept of the overlap
Yeah.
as opposed to that every other one.
Every
where
other
they
one,
run into
yes.
the-
I've overlapped them, and I've overlapped them in their qualities. Okay, so now the next thing I've done is I put this sun line on here, and I put it on just on a yearly basis so we can see what it's doing on a yearly basis first of all. And the first thing that it tells us on here is that when we get to this pivot line right here and the sun goes over the pivot line, it does something that we all know about, and that is that it goes over the Aries line here, and in other words, it goes from Pisces, this is the Pisces segment down here, goes from Pisces into Aries, and of course we know that as the spring equinox. We know that as the starting point of the year for the zodiac. So we have a start point of the year, which is around March 20th every year. If you look down to the bottom, you'll see that this crossover point and the date down here correlate with each other to be approximately March 20th down here. You look over at this one over here, the same thing with this line. Crossed over spring equinox, March 20th, it correlates with the date down here as being exactly the same time. So what we're looking at right here is two important points, or one important point each year, and two important points on this chart of when the sun crossed the pivot line, and this was the spring equinox. The other two things that you want to notice on this chart, and you're not going to get where I'm going with this until we've kind of learned some basics here. We have to learn some basics before you're going to get where we're going. Okay, the other thing that you want to look at here is that this sun line, right down here at the bottom here, the sun line, when it crossed through the 0 degrees Pisces line, the price was at the sun line and at the Pisces line. The price was right at it right there. This is what we're going to call price and time coming together. And price and time coming together is very important. Over here we have another point right here where you have sun line and the price on it and price and time coming together. What price and time means is, if you look at it this price-wise, just take this one right here and you look at it price-wise, and you see price is 380. And 380, if you translate that into planetary information, that means 20 degrees of Aries, because this is Aries right here, and it's 20 up. It's 380 is 20 degrees. It's 360 plus 20, and it's so it's 20 degrees of Aries. So it's telling you that the sun is at the price of the commodity at that point. In other words, there is total equilibrium and they are in balance together. The sun and price are exactly together, okay?
Could you not also consider that as 20 degrees Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn?
Yes, you could. Exactly, you could.
You could, but since you're looking at the main sun line, that actual...
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It is actually 20 degrees, but you can also consider that if this was in a different range, different price range for a different commodity, then it could be one of those things. If it was in a different price range, at the moment on this it is, as Thomas says, it is exactly at price and time. It's a total price and time there. Okay, so now we'll move on to the next chart so we can understand the next one, so we can begin to build our base here of what we have to do. On this chart, I've added in two more sun lines. I've added in the middle sun line. This was the sun line. Well, in fact, I've got four sun lines in here. This was the sun line we were looking at, and this was the sun line we were looking at. And I've got every 90 degrees now, I've got a sun line. And this gives us all of our different points of the year that we mark our year with. We've got summer solstice point right here. We've got the autumn equinox right here. We've got the winter solstice right here. You will notice again, right here, at this point here where we come to the autumn equinox, we have price and time. And the sun was at 0 degrees Libra. This is when we're looking at the opposite sign to Aries. We're looking at it, but it was right on price and time. So this again is called price and time. The sun and the price are traveling exactly together at exactly the correct point. These other points here are also called price and time. When the sun is exactly on the line, you have price and time. So these are very important because it tells you when the sun is at and the price are together, we've got equilibrium in price. Now what happens between equilibrium in price and the other times? And that means that these times the price is with the sun, but at other times the price is either lagging the sun or the price is preceding the sun. Now this is very, very important because we don't have price and time all the time. But what is happening here is the sun is the timer, and it is price is trying to get equal with it at all times, but it doesn't always do that, but it's always trying to get there. So it's either lagging it, or it's with it, or it's preceding it. So we need to bear that concept in mind because this has got what we're going to be working with. I have just, on this chart, to complete the picture of what we're working with, I have put on here the mirror lines. Because at the same time as we're going to be paying attention to this concept that I was just talking about, we're also paying attention to the fact that these are things we've discussed already in our other classes, is watching the price travel at the speed of a planet. And of course, we're very interested in the price traveling at the speed of the sun. And we see it doing that, and we see it going up at the speed of the sun. We see it coming down at the speed of the sun, traveling up at the speed of the sun. So we want to pay attention to that as part of a tool that we're going to be working with this concept that we're doing. And you know that already because we've already worked with that. Now, the thing that we need to talk a little bit about here is the fact that the sun as a timer, you know, the sun moves 1 degree approximately per day. And so you need to think about that because we're talking 360 degrees and the sun moving 1 degree per day. So it's moving basically, well, it moves 360 degrees in 365 days. So this is part of what we're putting into this whole thing here. Now, this is where we get to the interesting point. Right here on your chart 5, you see right here, the price is crossing the pivot line. And this is our 0 degrees Aries. Our price is crossing that line. And that's on 5/12. And the question is, where is the sun, the timer, on 5/12? That's the question. And on 5/12, the sun is between 21 and 22 of Taurus. And where does 21 or 22 of Taurus come on this chart if you turn it into price? 22 of Taurus is 412 degrees in price. Where was the top of this move? 412 degrees. Hello? Hello? Okay, now, Thomas, I need you to, let's show them how we'll do this on the graph, on the computer, just so that we can, just to make this really easy for you, we went ahead and we added into the new special upgrade section of the computer, we added in a section of where you can point to on this chart. And let's go ahead and point to this right here, which is, if you can find it on there. Yeah, that's it right there. Let's just point to that. And we have added in this section for you to make life easy, so you can point to these, and you'll see right there it tells you the sun is 21 of Taurus on that particular date.
Tell them how you do it.
And so
you point just to the right of the bar that you're interested in, the day that you're interested in, just to between it and the next bar, in other words, and hold your shift key down and click your right mouse button, and this window will appear.
And point to the sun on there. Point to the sun on there. So for those of you who don't know anything about it, Thomas is pointing to it now on the see, and it tells you the sun geocentrically is 20 degrees of Taurus and 29 minutes. So it's between 21 and 22 of Taurus.
21, 39 of Taurus.
but it's between that. So I have just taken the
And how did you convert that to 412?
412 degrees. Okay, let's convert that. Let's take, look at your chart here, and you see you've got 360 degrees.
If you add 360 to this number right here, you get that.
360 degrees, and you add it to 21, 22.
5164. 51.64.
And, well, actually, you have to add 30 degrees and then 21. So you're adding 30, you're adding 50-something degrees.
You're adding the position of the sun not in the sign, but on the wheel of 360. The position of the sun on that day was 21 degrees Taurus, which is 51 degrees on the wheel of 360.
Do you have a transparency here that I can write this down?
No, I don't. But you can throw a sheet of paper up there.
Oh, well, I'll
and
just
do
write
the
it
top
right
part,
here.
yeah.
So,
You said down shift.
Shift, but click your shift key and click the right mouse button.
okay, let's just turn that off a second and come back to the transparency.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
Are we saying,
I'm going,
because the price was at the pivot line
mhm.
on May 12th, that it will go to wherever that is astrologically?
We're going to say that, but we haven't said it yet.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, let's say, okay, so our calculation point is from the pivot line here, simply making calculations price-wise, because this is our 0 point. It's our 0 Aries point. So whenever we're going to calculate price, we have to start at our 0 Aries point. 0 Aries point for gold is $360, okay? So we put our 360, it's $360, 360 degrees, we put it in right up there. Now, Taurus, we're looking at it gave us that it was, let's say 21 Taurus. It's between 21 and 22 Taurus. Taurus, as Thomas showed you the other day on that wheel, Taurus is not the first sign of the zodiac, it's the second sign. The first sign is 30 degrees, and then Taurus is another 30 degrees, but we're only into Taurus 21 degrees. So we have the first 30 degrees of Aries, which is this 30 degrees right here, or $30. And so we add that on there. And then we have 21 degrees of the next sign, because it told us it was 21 Taurus. We have 21 degrees. So we add 21, and that gives you 1, and add that up together gives you what? 10, 11, carry 1, and that's 4, 11. And I said it would be 4, 12, because I'm giving you the middle, it's between 21 and 22, so I'm saying 412, and I'm saying 412, and I'm saying now 412, what does 412 mean to us on this chart? On this chart, 412, the only time it touched 412 was when it got to the high. Okay, so this is what we're saying about this. So let's look at it a little bit and see how we can work out some more things with this.
In actuality, the sun was at 21 and a half Taurus, which is 411 and a half, and the high was 411 and a half.
Yep, exactly. Exactly. So your chart number 6, your chart number 6, and in fact, an easy way to do that, before I show you chart number 6, why don't you sit back down here, Thomas, and let's give them some work to do here. You sit back down, we'll do this one more time. We'll point to all of these, this one, and let them do the work.
Okay.
Does this rule hold true, Jeannie, coming down as well?
Well, you'll have to wait and see, Lillian. I'm going to hold you in suspense. So let's point right now to the low of this going up cycle, the very low of the cycle right there,
Okay.
the very low bar,
Okay.
and that happens to be 310. So we got, 310 right there. And it says the sun on that day, and let's point to it, the sun on that day is at 9 degrees of Pisces. So write that number down, 19 degrees 40 of Pisces. And so let's call it 20.
Let's call it 350.
Well, let's call it 20. Okay, now let's go up to the next low that we have, which is the next bar up. Well, you can just go back and click on the bar and it'll just move it up. You don't have to turn it off. Click on that bar, which is 4:15, and the price, the place of the sun on that day is 25 of Aries 24, and so you can call that, you can call it 25, you can call it 24, it doesn't matter, but call it 25 of Aries. And now let's go to our chart that we're looking at and let's calculate that. Well, first of all, who's going to do the calculation on the first one? The first one is at 20 Pisces, right?
Yes.
Okay, so who can calculate what 20 Pisces means as price? The price is going to be below Aries, and 20 Pisces is really easy for you to see because you don't have to calculate it really. 20 Pisces, and I've written it on here, 10 Pisces, 20 Pisces, and 20 Pisces is going to be right here. 20 Pisces is right here. And where did the sun, where did price go? Oh, oh,
You need to switch back.
Sorry, I didn't realize you were on.
oh, okay, here we go. 20 Pisces is right here. And you see I've written on your chart number 6, you've got Pisces right here, 0 Pisces, 10 Pisces, 20 Pisces. So we know where 20 Pisces is. And where did price go from here? Price went up to 20 Pisces. The next date you calculated, the next low up, you calculated the price. The sun you said was at 25 Aries. 25 Aries is really easy to calculate because you've got it on here. 0 Aries, 10 Aries, 20 Aries, 25 Aries should be in this point. Where did price go from that point? Get your colored pens out. Mark it on there. Goes to 25 Aries. The price right here at this particular point from where we predicted our low to where we predicted our high, if you take the point, then it's a minor low that day right on this particular point. The sun was at 7 degrees of Taurus. 7 degrees of Taurus, now you have to do a calculation. 7 degrees of Taurus is 360 plus the 30 degrees of Aries, that 30 degrees right there. And 7 Taurus, I've written it on here, 10 Taurus, and 7 Taurus is going to come right in here. So, and that will be our 7 degrees, so that's how we would add it all up. It's going to come to 7 Taurus right in here. And so if we put our line up from here up to here, where did price go? 7 Taurus. From our crossover point right here, we already did this calculation. We already did this calculation of where price, when it got to the crossover, the sun was at 22 Taurus. We did this calculation already. Where did price go? So this is telling you that when price is not at price and time, and when it's lagging the sun, it's going to rush to those points where the sun is saying that it should be. And so this is what it actually does. Now, does everybody understand what's happening here? No.
I understand the math, but I don't understand how it's lagging the sun necessarily.
Why you pick those particular days?
Why did I pick these days down here? I just picked the isolated lows. I picked all the isolated lows. Anytime an isolated low came in, I picked it. So let's say an isolated low is a bar that is lower than the rest, and then the days following, you have higher lows. So in other words, an isolated low is you have bars trading like this, and then one comes down, it's low, and then after that, the market goes like this. So on this day right here, you can look at the sun on this date back over here 2 days previously because you've already got an isolated low formed, and you can predict where price is going to be from that isolated low. You can right away say price has to now go to this point. So when you are predicting the market for an up market, when the market is going up like this, you're going to pick all your isolated lows as being the points to project where price is going to go. And so you pick your isolated lows, and it tells you the higher point where price is going to go. Every isolated low will tell you that. If you, and then of course you always want to look at price going over the center line, because that's a very important point. And whenever it goes over the center line, you want to see exactly where it's telling you. If price is not in equilibrium at that point, if it's not price and time, then it will predict where price will go. Okay?
Well, you have an isolated low on 610 approximately.
Yes, well, we're not getting to that yet. We'll get to that on our next sheet. Let's everybody get, comfortable with where we are before we move to the next sheet.
Just average amount to arrive at your, the actual high that it was going to.
Did I didn't get that question.
You took several, 1, 2, 3, 4 checkpoints there, 3 of which were isolated lows,
Mhm.
4th of which is where it crossed zero areas.
Right.
And from those, you determined high points.
Well, I didn't, those did come out as high points, but I didn't determine them to be high points. I just determined them to be where the market would go. But those actually turned out to be high points.
Okay.
But that's the other part of it. I mean, yeah,
On that day.
yes.
What she's basically done in this trend up is she used the 3 isolated lows below the center line, or actually 2 isolated lows in the point where they cross the center line, to pinpoint or to project 3 isolated highs above the center line.
Now the other part of this, of what Thomas has just pointed out, and if you will look at this very, very clearly, you will see the symmetry here, or the symmetry, as Thomas accused me of saying, and it could be a symmetry for some people if they're not trading properly. But if you just look, we have the center line right here, and we have 3 points that we've taken in the low side, and we've come out with 3 points that we have on the upper side. And so, you're getting balances here. The actual price imbalance is not quite the same, but, and I don't know if Thomas talked to you about, price moves, but I will tell you, just for interest, and this is not something I'm going to go into today, but just for interest, I will tell you this, that from this low right here to this high right there, you had 144 days. Now 144 days is of course a number that works in with our 24, and it's 72, and Thomas has done a lot with you on 72, haven't you, Thomas? And it's 72 times 2. So you have that many days because the sun is involved, and we're working with a sun's thing here, and we're working, so a prediction from this point right here to this point right here of 144 days, and of course the middle point of the first move up here came at 72 days. It had a retracement and then went up, came down and made its final part in 144 days. That's not anything that I want to really talk about today. That's just an aside to tell you that there are other things that you have to look at in market symmetry here and the balance of this whole thing. But what we're only concerned with is taking isolated lows, and this is not the only thing that I take, but it's the only thing that I'm showing you right now, okay? I'm taking isolated lows, and I'm taking the crossing of this center line. And those are the important parts that you're going to look at to predict highs coming in the future. Okay, now, next page. Chart number 7. Now this is the question that we were just asked of what about this low right here in June. And this low right here gave us the sun on that day was at 23 Gemini, which gave us a price, 23 Gemini gives us a price of 443 if the price is continuing to go up. It gives us a price of 443. So this price would be up here somewhere, okay, if that's to fall in that particular range. Or the other thing about Gemini is Gemini we have a Gemini right here. Gemini has to be either up here because you've got Taurus, and then the next sign is Gemini, comes up above there, or we have to use Gemini in with Pisces, and it's down here. So it's either going to be 23 of Gemini up here, and if the market's moving up and going up in a terrific move up, then it's going to be much higher, or it's going to be 23 of Pisces, which is going to be much lower. So in looking at these ranges as the market moves up, what happens here is that you're going to find that starting out, it is predicting higher, 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 and then as you get up there, it's predicting either way higher or it's going to be lower. So you know at this point your trend is beginning to fade. And the other thing about this is, at this point you could have said, okay, my high is going to be here. But what we're also going to be doing is looking at some other points as we're doing this, which we need to now look at our next chart. No, it didn't get there, and this is what I'm talking about right now.
It can't just keep going up forever.
Well,
At some point, it has to stop and go the other way.
so what's happening? You're on this trend. You've been predicting the highs, you've been predicting the highs, you've been predicting the highs. But while you are predicting the highs, you have to look at those highs and say, what lows are these highs predicting? And find out, because after a while, the highs are going to start telling you, it's telling you all lows and the market's coming the other way. So this is very complex, and it's going to take us a while to get there, but let's do it slowly and let's work with it. So once we're getting up here, and let's look at this as being, first of all, let's talk a bit more about our pivot line here, and I push my button again, just a moment. There we go. Let's talk about our pivot line here of being, when price is above the pivot line, it's positive, and let's just say when prices are below the pivot line, it's negative. So now once price is up above the pivot line, we especially want to start looking at the tops and seeing what price ranges those tops are predicting for us. Okay? So so we take the first top right here, the first major top after it's occurred. So 3 or 4 days later, we see that top is in there, and we find out what price is that top predicting for us. And the sun on that day was at 11 Gemini. Now, tops don't predict tops. Tops predict bottoms. And 10 Gemini, for a bottom, Gemini would have to be under, on the negative side of the pivot line. It would have to be under. And so it's going to be in the Pisces Gemini area, and so it's going to predict 11 Gemini. Here is 11 Gemini right there. It's 10 Pisces right there. 11 will be right above it. So it's 10 Pisces or 10 Gemini, because Gemini comes in with the Pisces grouping right here. And it predicted a low. So now we're only, let's say we're only up to here. We're only up to this particular point right here. We haven't gone any higher than that at this particular moment. Let's say that we're trading this, and let's say that we only have to this particular point right here. But we already know now that we're predicting a low lower than the highs that have already been predicted for us. Okay? And I'm not saying this is easy to do, and I'm not saying this is something that you might have to sit down with this and work with this to get the clear picture on it. And I thought long and hard, how could I explain this to you that it would be easy? And because there's a lot of other things that go with it that I can't get into all of them today, but this works by itself, and you can use it very, very well. But right away, this tells us we're predicting a lower low. So now you're going to get interested because we're above the pivot line, we're in a positive area, but it's telling us that price will be coming down somewhere there in the future. So now we move on, And this one has predicted us something up here in this range. And so at the moment we have it up here in this range. The next high comes in. A few days after that high has come in, we can say an isolated high has formed, and it gives us the sun at 14 degrees of Cancer. 14 degrees of Cancer is right here in the Aries grouping, Cancer. 14 degrees of Cancer is lower than where we are. 14 degrees of Cancer is right there on that minor low that came right there, which is where it went to after it reached the top. And so that happened, but again it told us lower than the price that we were looking at right here. So now we're beginning to get the picture. And then finally, a couple of days after this high has come in, and that was our high that was predicted. It was the 412. We know it was predicted, and we know, and that price has already happened, and it's made that a couple of days later. We know that's a high, and the price was at 10 Leo, and 10 Leo is going to be the same as Taurus, and it's predicted, that high price is predicted lower. And we want to remember this 10 Leo because it's an important thing, because it's an extreme high, and these extreme high prices we can use in other ways, and we want to remember that. And so it has predicted that to us. And so this is the way we're going to be watching this as the price moves. Okay, let me see what else I want to tell you about this chart.
Is it significant that it hit the sun line on a mirror and that was then
Well, yes,
giving it a
because
downward
at that time it's price and time as well as being a predicted price, and it's price and time. And price and time, when it's at price and time, makes very little prediction for you.
But
Because
it's on the mirror
yeah.
line, and wouldn't that then give you the inclination that it has hit the mirror line, so maybe it is the last top and not to look for it to go further up?
Well, that would give you one thing, but the one thing to me would be that my highs are constantly predicting lower lows. That's, to me, the very, very important thing. The fact that it then gets on the mirror line, and the fact the day after it comes down significantly through it, that to me would, tell me that my high has been put in, and maybe I should start now looking for these lows to fulfill themselves. And that's the first thing that happened, is that it immediately fulfilled this prediction right here, came to that low, and then immediately went and fulfilled this prediction here and went to that low. So those are things that to me would be immediately, significant. I mean, naturally, I'm watching what it's doing up and down those lines. Naturally, I'm watching that, but that's the additional tool just to confirm what's actually happening. I wouldn't actually just say, well, the fact that it's got there and come through that line, I know that's the end of it, because it could just be a little minor thing down and start right back up again right in that area. The other thing that you have to look at here is combining some of the things that Thomas talked with you about. And that is that many things are significant at that particular point to tell you that the top has come in, and that would be your final move. So there were a lot of other things at that particular point that would be of interest to you. This particular low right here, another thing that happened here and here is we have price and time, price and time. Price and time don't give you any projection. This price and time right here, the sun was right where it should be. This had been lagging the sun all the way along. And suddenly now it's right at price and time. Having lagged the sun and come into price and time again tells you that this market is turning, because it's come to a point of equilibrium. So then it makes its final move up. It gives you the 412 that it predicted, and the price that it predicts right here of 10 Leo is pretty much in the range area here of where it is. Again, telling us it comes down just a little bit, it's just under it, but it's pretty much price and time. So again, price and time are the terminations. You have to watch those as terminations. And so price and time has come together. When it has come down and you get this high right here on the move down, Where does this high predict a low is going to be? It's at 10 Virgo. 10 Virgo is in the Pisces grouping here, and 10 Virgo brings you right down to this particular point right here. It predicted the low down there. So it tells you where price is going to go. Yes, you had a question.
I have.
Okay, somebody said Jeannie.
Oh, she did.
Oh, yes.
Tricia's.
Okay, I followed everything you said except the part about the lows were coming in lower than we were, and that's why you knew it was not going to do those lows yet. It was going to continue on up. You said-
No, what I said there was that the lows were, the highs were predicting lower lows than where we were at that particular moment. In other words, this high predicted a price that was lower than that high. This high predicted a price that was lower than that high. So I'm in a trend run up, and I'm completing predictions that I have from the bottom here. But I know now, as we're getting to these points, I know that even though these numbers from the bottom are going to be completed, following that, then the price is going to be coming down because it's already telling me that. So I have to start looking then for this price to roll over. So the moment again that this price starts down, this low predicted something up here in Gemini. And that was never fulfilled. And the fact that it did what it moved down, and then it went ahead and it moved to one of the lows predicted by this, and of course that's a big move down, but that already confirmed to you that you're on the downside now, and you've got to start looking when you're going down at highs going down. Okay? And when you're going up, you're looking at lows going up.
So a high would not predict a low lower than where we are, only when price and time are together. Is that true?
No, price and time together predict exactly where you are. Price and time are
When else would a high not predict a low lower than
a
where
high could predict a high higher than where you are. And if the high predicts a high higher than where you are, then the market is not changing. It's still going up. It's only when highs start predicting lows lower than where you are in the market, at that point you know that the market has to change. Very shortly it has to change. Very shortly, those highs that it has predicted for you will be finished, and the lows that it is predicting for you will have to be fulfilled. Now, there are several other things that I combine with this, but to show you those things today would only confuse you even more. But if you sit down and you work with this, and if you sit down and you go through this in detail, you would immediately see, well, wait a minute, if this is what the sun is telling me, what about the other planets? But that's all I'm going to say on that at the moment. Yes, Thomas?
I was going to say, there's a real easy way to do this if you just draw a line up and hit the sun.
Why
and
don't
go
we show
forward.
here we go. Thomas is showing an easy way for you to do this too.
There's an easy way to do this. If you put your sun lines geocentric at 90 degrees, in other words, you're looking at the fourth harmonic because we divided the wheel into four parts. Well, you divided the mutable signs, the signs into three parts, but she's using 90-degree lines. So what you're doing basically, because she's only looking at a 90-degree or $90 area, right? So what we're doing basically is on the day of this low right here, or some days after that low, when you realize it's a low, if you just were to draw a line straight up to the nearest sun line and stop there, and then draw another line horizontally from that point, you've got your projection right there. That's your critical point that's projected off of that low. Same thing with this high right here. We draw a line up to hit the sun, and then we can project that out from that point to get a critical point here.
And that high, by the way, is predicting a higher point than the high.
Yeah.
You see, so it's not started predicting lower points for highs at this point.
Yeah, exactly. It's predicting a higher high. You see, so it doesn't affect our uptrend one bit. This low right here is still projecting a higher high And now, one of the things that you could do is, since we could just go ahead and fix the scale, since we're looking at a range of $3, $300, or $330. Was it $330? Well, we're looking at a range in this 3 sign area, which starts at $330, right? Or does it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it starts at $330. I'm going to go ahead and draw these lines on here, $330, $390. Okay. And what's happening is, as these points come up, and we're projecting points out, and we wanted the point where it crossed the center line right here, because we consider that a critical time. And then after that, we get a low here, an isolated low, so let's go ahead and look at that. And what you'll notice is that that's off the top of the scale. So let's go the other way.
And what are you going to consider the whole of the scale, 360 degrees?
90 degrees.
Okay, so you go to the nearest 9-degree line.
I'm going to the nearest sun line that's within the scale of the chart, basically, within the scale of this range that we've been traveling in on the gold for a long, long time. The gold for a long, long time has been traveling between $3 and $4.20. So I'm really I'm not expecting the gold to do anything abnormal by getting out of that range, so I'm going to project within the range. So I'm just going to keep that same range here, and then we got that low projected down here, and this high projects right down here. See, so this high is projecting a lower low now. This low is projecting a lower low. This high is projecting a lower low. And this high up here is projecting a lower low, which is met almost immediately.
Yep, because it was price and time.
Yeah, so once you get to this point where we're almost out of the range, and you've had 3 highs above the center line, and you probably had some cycles coming together there, critical aspects happening at the time, then the trend changes, and now you start looking at your projections off of these highs for your next stopping points. And they gave you some really nice turning points down here.
But what the principle that you need to remember right now is that on an uptrend, you want to look at lows projecting the highs. Once you get over the Aries line, because we're coming to this low from these lows under the Aries line. So once you get over the pivot point, you want to start. Oh, thank you. Yes, let's go to this. Okay, what you have to look at here is you have the pivot point.
I'm going to the overhead.
Yeah, you have the pivot point. And, yeah, you have the pivot point. And as long as you're under the pivot point and you're coming up, you're looking at it projecting up into this section of the chart. Once you get over this point in this chart, you want to especially look at the highs and see what lows they're projecting, because if they're going to project it back down in this range, then especially you knowing that this trend is now moving over. And if you were counting these days, of course, you'd be saying, okay, 72 days came down, 144 days came down, so you might want to use your day count on that. I'm looking for things to tell you to use with it at the moment, because the other things that I use with it, I can't tell you, because I don't have enough time unless we sit down for a whole 5-day period and we go through each of these things one at a time, so you can predict everything and you can pull it all together.
It's just another great tool for predicting market geometry.
Yeah, exactly. But what I decided to do was to show you this and start you off on it, and then see what happens from there. So,
how do you know that you're predicting? Let's just say you're predicting these lows. How do you know that they're going to be sooner or later? What time frame? Like, could it be a year from now?
No, it's not going to be a year from now. It's going to be in the very near future. Now, the timing on that, the actual timing on that of when that is going to happen, is part of the other segment and the other tools, the exact timing on it. But to try to show you that in a workshop here, I would have had to have taken the whole workshop just for that alone.
I just
The
noticed something.
timing is difficult, but it's very clear, but it's difficult to do because we've got a lot of people who wouldn't be aware of how to do it without a lot of work. Yes.
I mean, here's another thing that's happening here, is after you get these 3 highs and that third projected target is met, we had that move and that took it out of that channel, okay? You had this one sun channel that had been traveling
Yeah, that's the
in.
reason why we have the sun channels in
Right,
there, yeah.
and when the sun channel, when it changed directions and
Which
started,
is what you said a minute ago.
it
but-
started going down, that was a pretty key, well, I mean, immediately within one day, that huge bar completed our next projection down.
Yeah.
But the trend changed, and it was at this point right here where it crossed out of that channel that we started looking at our projections back up again. I mean, it's...
When it goes out of the channel, it's gonna go either.
Well, that's,
Yeah, and you need to follow those channels, and that's the reason why we have them on there, because this is going to be a helpful tool to you. I'm going to wipe this off a second here because I need to have that area to show you what we're going to work on right in there.
Just
But,
like always, I've always in my entire life been messing up what you're working on.
Oh, oh, poor boy, poor boy.
I have to tell you all the story about the time that when she was sitting there when I was about 12 and you were sitting there with your papers all spread out on the table, and I came in with a big toad. And I came in with a big frog. It was a frog that lived under our driveway, and I called him Fat Albert. And I came in and I said, "Look, Mom," and I held him out like this, and he peed all over her papers.
But Thomas was very good to me. You know, when he was a little boy, he was very, very good to me. He was like a father to me. He's a Capricorn, and he was very fatherly. And so one evening I had come in, at that time I was teaching astrology at the University of Houston and the University of St. Thomas in the evenings. And so I came in, and Thomas was about 11, 12 years old, something like that at the time. And they had my dinner ready for me when I got home because I didn't get in till like 9:30 in the evening, and they had my dinner all ready for me. At the time I was single, and so they were looking after me, Linda and Thomas. And I came in and I said, "Oh, Thomas, I'm so tired." I said, "Would you get me a cup of tea?" And he sat down next to me and put his arm around my shoulders like a father. He says, "Oh, anything my little baby dumpling mother wants." So he's been very good to me, even though he let his toad pee all over everything. Okay, so what we want to look at now is here we have the pivot line, and our price crossed the pivot line 3 times in this area right here that we haven't talked about yet. And the first price crossover predicted price to come down to here. That crossover, the sun was at 14 Virgo, and that predicted a price of 344, which is right in this range right here. The second crossover, which was right here, which was price and time, so it didn't make a prediction for us. We had no prediction on that one. This low, after this low had come in a few days later, and you're going to get now the picture here, this low came in and the price was 21 Virgo. The sun was at 21 Virgo. And what did it do? It predicted it just slightly above. Does this look now like this chart that you were just looking at right here? Does that scenario look like this scenario of it came in and it just predicted it slightly lower? Does that look like that? Going in the opposite direction. And of course, what did it do? It immediately became price and time. And what happened right here? It was price and time, or it was price and time right here. It made our high and predicted lower. So when the charts get into the price and time areas of equilibriums, watch out for the reversals of the trend. We knew this market was going up, and it became price and time. So watch out for these changes of trend. Here we are, price and time, and this is the bottom area, and it moves up. And so now we have another crossover here at the center line again, and the sun predicts 15 Libra, which is higher than this particular point. So it's predicting higher. These two, this one predicted lower, this one was right on it, and this one predicted higher. You know, so this center line is very, very important. You need to pay attention to this. And of course, people involved with astrology are very concerned about the 0-degree Aries and what it does. It's an important point, but you see it's an important market point. You see now why I'm showing you this on gold, because the numbers are so close. Because if I try to show you this on S&P, or I try to show you this on the Dow, I think you would walk away from here and say, well, I don't get it, and I can't, you know, work with it. But if you just play with gold a while on this, I think then you'll be able to translate it into the others. Or if maybe later Thomas wants to do a workshop on this, or include it in one of his workshops and do some more work for you on the other markets, so that, you know, but you have to have this basis before you go any further, because if you don't understand this clearly, it's going to be a nightmare for all of us.
We need to do something where we spend a whole day or 2 days just
Yeah.
talking about methods of targeting, because I have my own methods of targeting too that are very similar.
Yeah, exactly.
And
exactly. all
that I'm
combined.
looking at on the major reversal day, on the key reversal, I'm looking at the actual aspect position to project the next target, and this is the same thing we're doing.
Well, for example, right now on the Dow, 7,200 is going to be the 0-degree line. 7,200 is like 360 plus 360. It's 720 multiplied out to the Dow numbers that we work with. So,
So it'd be 10 points per degree.
hmm?
We just crossed the center line on
Yeah.
dip. That last
Yeah.
big dip is the center line.
Yeah.
6,900 and pop right back up. So you have a perfect opportunity off of that center line crossing
To work it all out. But I don't want to spend a lot of time. Hmm?
If I have a stock that trades at $30,
Oh,
would $36 be my center?
exactly. $36 would be your center line. So
If gold were to get up to 720,
Oh,
that would be your new
that would be your new pivot. That would be your new pivot line. And if gold would go up, if it continues to go up, you immediately take the Gemini from down here and add it onto the top. It's in Gemini. If it breaks this point, it'd have to break 420. It'd have to get above 420, and then it's in the Gemini area. And instead of looking at Gemini being down here, you're looking at Gemini being up here. But when it doesn't complete those moves, then it has to stay within our price range that we have right here. And so until it completes those moves, until it breaks out of that range, so to speak, and it hasn't, until it breaks out of that range, then we can't look at those numbers. Okay, so, yes.
Can highs predict higher highs, like we were
Yes,
before 11?
we just showed that right here. This high right here predicted a higher high.
Okay, how did you know to come back down instead of going up to the next generation, Gemini higher up, like in the 450s?
Because I didn't get a chance. I didn't get a chance to get higher up because it automatically, before it fulfilled that Gemini, it started predicting lower.
So as soon as it turned around, you knew it wasn't going to go
Well,
up.
the clue on what I'm telling you today is that as you're following the lows going up and predicting your highs, you're calculating your highs to see what it's going to tell you about coming down. And if those highs are predicting, and they won't be predicting in the beginning, but as you work with them, as they continue up, they'll start predicting lower lows. And that's the point you say, oh, wait a minute, this trend can't last any longer. And then you want to start watching your sun lines very closely, or any other line, or you put your technical tools on with the information that you know right now. Put your technical tools on and start watching for this market to give you a sell signal. And the moment it gives you a sell signal, the moment this high came in, and another clue is that it's getting in a price and time area, it's coming into equilibrium, and it's not really predicting any kind of move. Because this predicted no move right here. That gave us nothing right there. It just fulfilled the where was it from down here? It fulfilled the one that it had already predicted for you, fulfilled that, and that prediction was to a lower price. And that right away is, wait a minute, you know, this is over. Now, I know you'll have to play with this to get the feel of it. Yes,
If this works on gold and it works on the Dow, it works on any stock.
that's right, that's right. The sun is
May
the
have to use
timer.
Some other indicator, like something other than the sun.
No, along with, something along with.
Yeah, along with.
I think the
That's-
sun would work on anything.
The sun works on everything, but you're going to use some other things along with it, and that's what I'm saying. We're having difficulty in understanding this. This is the reason why I don't want to get into.
I think it will work
anything
better
further.
on some things, like the beans spiral around 720. You know, their range is like $9 down to $6, and that's spiraling around 720. The wheat spirals around 360. The gold spirals around 360.
What about bonds?
The bonds spiral around 108, which is a 360 times 3 is 1080, 1080. The bonds spiral around 108. If you find a stock that spirals around 36 or $72, you can do this quite easily.
1080 for the S&P?
Well, 720. Now they're trying to get to 1080. Yeah, that would be your next center line. Would be 1080.
Okay, the other prices on here are all predicted for you, and so that I don't run out of time and I give Thomas a lot of time to work on some other things with you later, let's go on to our next chart because it's all listed for you right here on this chart. You can just read through it, you can calculate it yourself, and you can see exactly what happened. Let's just look over here, because you see the thing was that we knew that a major low should be coming in on gold because we've already done that cycle. We knew already that cycle of the low coming right in here. We knew that. And so you're especially interested when you've got these lows predicted from other things and you know that it's coming in right here. So at this, and I've marked it for you with numbers and I've written about it on the side here. And I said the Sun-Mars cycle low was under the pivot point line. So if price is to go higher, it has to get back above that pivot line. The high forms at the pivot line right here at 2. It's gone back above it. The high forms right there. And this high gives you a prediction of price, which is 11 degrees of Pisces. And 11 degrees of Pisces, here's Pisces, and 11 degrees of Pisces is below, which is down here. So this is predicting a lower price. Now, if this market, we've had our Mars low comes in here, if this market is to go higher like it's telling us, and this low should not be taken out unless something serious is going to happen, and your first high comes in, and a couple of days after that you said, oh my goodness, and that's predicting a low of 11 Pisces. And so that's a very, very interesting thing. And 11 Pisces, I put it in the wrong place there. Let me get it off that. 11 Pisces is right here. This is Pisces, and that'd be 11 Pisces right there. So it's predicting a low of 11 Pisces, which it immediately went to. So it made that low of 11 Pisces. It didn't take out the low right here, but the prediction was reached. So number 3, you look at the the same price almost as the Sun-Mars low, and it must hold if price is to go up. You've got the Mars low right here, Sun-Mars low right there. That price that this predicted it down to must hold if price is to go up, as this trend says. And then you have the high, it goes up, the high forms right here, and the sun is at 22 Taurus. And 22 Taurus is up here. This is 22 Taurus is up here. And
That would be somewhat unrealistic.
yep, exactly. But right now we are under the pivot line. We're in the negative range. And so it's got to get up here into positive range to be 22 of Taurus right here. So what happens, this is number 4 right here, what happens a few days later, it takes out that Sun-Mars low. And what was your rule on taking out that Sun-Mars low? That said if it took it out, it would be seriously lower. And on that day, you could have predicted where that's going to go to, because if it didn't get to 22 of Taurus, it will go to 22 of Aquarius, and 22 of Aquarius is right here. This is 20, because Aquarius, you've got Aquarius, Leo, and Scorpio now. Down here, you see I've moved it down. This is Pisces. This down here would be Aquarius. This up here, like we talked a while ago, if it gets through Taurus, this up here is going to be Gemini. So immediately that low is taken out, you say, oh my goodness, it's going to go down. It's going to make its prediction down to that 22 of Taurus, which will be right there. Because you knew that immediately that low was taken out. And then at that low was taken out, and it gave you a few more predictions. I think we got those on the next sheet. Let me look at the next sheet. But see, this is how you could combine some other things in with this. Things that you know. Sometimes it's very hard for me to talk to you about this because I have other great tools that I really want you to combine in with this, but where's the time to tell you about it? I mean, so I'm, a bit hard pressed, but anyway, let's just look at this chart right here, chart 11. It started predicting your lows all the way down. You can just look at this and you can see that it's predicted lows all the way down. This high right here that was up at this particular point right here, this high predicted a low of 15 Aquarius. Major highs in the market will often predict major lows. So that's, you remember a little while ago I said to you, we had that major high at 410. I said keep that number in mind, pay attention to that number. Keep those major low numbers in mind or major high numbers in mind. They will tell you about future events. Anyway, this, I'm not going to go through the whole thing because I want to give some time for Thomas. He's got a lot of work to do for you here. But looking at all of this down here, you can just go through it yourself. It will automatically explain itself. Go through it yourself. And what we're really concerned with right here is what is happening during this period of time. This particular high right here has predicted, it says Sun at 7 Libra. Now 7 Libra has to be either up here or 7 Libra is down here under Aquarius. If you get under Aquarius, you come to Capricorn. And 7 Libra would be equivalent with 7 Capricorn, which would work out in price to be 277. That would work out at a price of 277. We have now come down to the 300 range, and we're moving slightly up off that. We've come down into that particular area. That has predicted a low of that. Now the low that we had at 300, which I looked at for you today, the low we had at 300 has predicted a high of 21 Scorpio. 21 Scorpio will put you into the Aquarius range, so it says that low of 300 is predicting you a high right here. 21 of the Scorpio Aquarius range, so it's predicted a high of that particular point. And the high in the range that we're in right now, well, the sun was at 20. Sun was at 21 Aquarius on this low right here. Sun was at 21 Aquarius. Let me zoom that in so we can look at what we're doing here. Sun was at 21 of Scorpio, which translates to 21 of Aquarius. That's where it was a few days ago when it made this low at 300. So immediately you look at that, and it's predicting to 21 of Aquarius as being the high. We've had a minor high has just been put in, and that minor high is at about 309. And that is, the sun was at 26 of Scorpio. So that minor high is predicting a higher point. So the situation is at the moment, we've got this low predicting a higher position. We've got the high predicting a higher position. So it looks like this market will go up into this range before it can come down any lower and complete that that low that it might have predicted right here, or that low may never be seen. What I have to tell you about all of this is that back in 1984, Neptune went into the sign of Capricorn, and you had a low on gold within 4 months of Neptune going into Capricorn. You had a low on gold of 277. And Neptune is just about to go out of Capricorn. So, and now we're back down within that same low range as we were in 1995 area. So there is a possibility that this could go down and it could go a little bit lower than this. I don't know that it'll go quite as low as it has predicted, this 7 area. There's a possibility that it could go down lower. But if it keeps predicting me highs and higher highs here, then this is probably the bottom for the moment. What was it that you had, Thomas, on that?
Well, when Neptune came into Aquarius, they put in
Neptune in Capricorn.
While Neptune was in Capricorn, they put in highs on the last Mars-Venus conjunct.
Yeah,
when
which
they were
is
both
in-
conjunct Neptune at the same time.
Yeah.
Which is coming up again, so we should see lows around Neptune at the same time there.
Yeah.
Which falls into that scenario. Neptune's at 297, so we could see a slightly lower low. And then,
Yeah, so
that would be
to
your
me it'll come down in that range again, but it looks like it's going to have to go up before it does. The thing about it is, and Thomas has gone over this with you, but if you see right here, we have a tremendous amount of support here from all of the planets. And this support also means that it wants to come to this area. And so the heliocentric Neptune is right in this range right here, which is the 300 range, and it's come right to it and touched that point. But I think it's going to come back to this point before it can get away from it, because this is an important range. Right now it's just predicting up to about here, but I think it's going to be back down here. And Thomas and I actually, we talked about this.
Well, with the volatility that's
Yeah.
picking up, it could easily go do the high, come back, do the low by in a month. In a month
so it's
from now.
predicting a slightly higher high for the moment to back there. The thing to remember on gold, and gold has over the years been very much tied to interest rates, and you know, tied to many other things, but it has been, because it is like a Neptunian thing. Gold, Neptune rules interest rates and Neptune rules gold, so many times they do pretty much the same thing. Neptune in Capricorn has kept interest rates down very, very low. Neptune gets into Aquarius coming up very shortly in the early part of next year. Neptune in Aquarius means that interest rates now are free to run. They haven't been free to run the whole time that it's been in Capricorn. The last time interest rates were up high was back in, 81, 82 area, they were very high. That was before Neptune got into Capricorn. It was while Neptune was in Sagittarius. And now it's moving into Capricorn, so interest rates can go on up. And at the moment interest rates start going up, then you've got gold is going to go up and go with it. We've got several things on gold that I don't have time to tell you about that all indicate gold can make a move coming up. So the interesting thing to me here is, look at what happened with Neptune in Capricorn. We reduced, Capricorn being the Saturnian sign, we have reduced the value of gold down to nothing. I mean, we've said, oh, it's not worth anything anymore, it's not going to do anything anymore. But is Neptune real? Is what you hear under a Neptunian umbrella the true story? Is that reality? No, it isn't. So suddenly we're going to wake up as it's in Aquarius, and we're going to find out that that's not true, that gold does have a value. So something is going to revitalize gold coming up, and we're going to find that out.
I think Pluto in Sagittarius is going to lend to that increased interest in things that have a real material value.
And real material value, I mean real material values, could we have real material values with Neptune in Capricorn? No. The values haven't gone away, it's just that we didn't see them anymore. I think that we're getting back to that. And so the final chart I have to show you here is just to make one further point of looking at all of that bottoming out there. No, it's not that chart that I want to show you, it's the other one, this one. Looking at all that bottoming out, and these are some questions that Chuck was asking me and several other people were asking me, and this just puts us back now to the chart that we started on. And we started, as you can see, we started moving up from this point here And of course, we had a major resistance right there from a major planet. And when we got up here, again, we had major resistance from a planet. So these are points, again, that, and this is just adding one further tool in to what you're looking at as to what stops price along with, in other words, let me tell you this, Chuck. You asked this very question, and let me tell you this. This point right here predicted it was 22 of Taurus, Sun at 22 of Taurus, and it predicted 412. At the moment it predicted that, the planet Pluto, right up here, was at 22 of Scorpio and traveling right there. 22 of Scorpio, of course Scorpio is the opposite sign to Taurus, so naturally the line, since we have doubled all of these things up, that 22 of Scorpio falls right where 22 of Taurus would fall. So when this prediction came up of 22 of Taurus, and after you have worked with this a little while, and you say, 22 of Taurus, it's predicting that right on Pluto. Interesting. That may very well stop this market. So you have to think about that, and as it's coming up to that line and it gets to that line, and the day it stops on that line, look at it, it stopped on that line and closed below it. And then 2 days later it closed below that sun line that's right there.
Does that fall in line with the idea that Pluto a lot of times will rule the extremes?
Mm-hmm.
Pluto generally does rule exaggerations.
Exactly.
Things that are exaggerated in price, if they're exaggerated one way or the other, they stop on
This
Pluto.
is just a clue I'm giving you right here to tell you that when that price is predicted, look and see if there's another planet at that price it's predicting. Look and see what other planet is at that point that it is predicting. And if there is another planet at that point that it is predicting, or if that planet is not yet at that point, let's say, for example, just to give you a clue, that it predicts 22 Taurus, but Pluto is at 23 Scorpio, and it is not going to be at 22 Scorpio for another month. How long is it going to take that price to get to that point? Because it's not going to get to the 23 point, it's going to get to the 22 point. So this gives you a clue on timing of how this all works. But I can promise you quite clearly that I couldn't give you the timing in less than about 5 days and have you all understand it. I could give it to you, but you wouldn't understand. You go home mad at me.